So, what do Superman and Elminster have in common in tabletop fantasy RPGs? Well, this is one of the tales of the 39, and we're going to talk about some stuff that happened in the 90s when I was in college at our Dungeons and Dragons table. Well, in to kind of start off, yesterday I saw on the social media platform X, used to be Twitter, there was a gamer account that was kind of polling people, asking the question about DMs fudging dice and what do you believe about that and stuff like that. I'm not here to debate that or try to persuade people of my opinion or anything, but I need to tell you my opinion so you understand the story, like so you understand what was going on. So I don't fudge dice as the DM. I just let the dice. I just let what happens. I roll my dice in front of the screen. I started doing that in college in the 90s because I noticed that when I roll dice in front of the screen, then people don't like accuse me of cheating or fudging dice or something like that. There's a gentleman who really affected me as a game master. Basically taught me everything I know about DMing. And he was just legendary. He used to run games for like 20 people at once. And, I would have been either a teenager or an early 20 something at the time. And I said, hey, Ron, did you know that, and I'm not going to name names right now. It's not important. And it was years ago anyway. But did you know that like so-and-so is cheating on his dice rolls over there? And Ron's like, it doesn't matter. And but he said, don't you ever cheat on your dice rolls as the DM. Because he says, then you're stooping to their level, and then it's not a game anymore. Then it becomes just some sort of weird, sick thing. Just some sort of, because if you take the dice rolls out of it, it's not, and you take chance out of it, it's not a game. It becomes just a storytelling thing. And some people are into that. And when I was reading the responses to the X question, do you believe in fudging dice or not? The people that did believe in fudging dice talked about their philosophy of storytelling and everything. And I'm not here to debate gaming philosophy. I want to tell my story, but there's some background you need for the story. So I don't fudge dice. Ron told me, I said, as the DM, what he did was he just increased the challenge level. He ran his world at a challenge level to compensate for the cheating. So that he didn't actually cheat, he just increased the challenge level of what he was running to compensate. And then that's kind of what I've done. Now, another reason that I don't fudge dice rolls is I like to pretend. Now, you can think I'm weird all you want. I'm not here to. I just need to tell you what you need to know for the story. But I like to pretend that somewhere out there, if there really is a multiverse, and there really is a reality out there where my character is basically representing me, I like to know like would I really have lived or not and stuff if that was real. And the dice are like the quantum mechanics factor. They're the randomness chaos factor of the game, right? So they're the probability factor. So would my elf fighter mage have made that saving throw versus the dragon breath so that he would have not taken the brunt of it and only taken half damage and lived? Or would he have just been vaporized? Little ash cinders. I like to pretend that the dice are actually telling me what would happen in another universe. You can think that's silly if you want. I don't care. But the point is I don't fudge dice rolls. So moving on from that. So how that applies to our story today about Superman and Elminster. Well, so I kind of got this reputation in the college town where I was, Warrensburg, Missouri at the time, as being the like absolute fair DM. And this is going to segue into another story, but this one is just, I like this story. This is just silly. And other people have liked the story over the years. But in the brick and mortar game store that we used to game in, there were people, and these, usually males, these men were in their 20s, maybe early 30s, grown men, and they would get into such pissy Annie little stupid hissy fit arguments with each other, like childish playground type stuff. And one of the things that they would do is they would challenge themselves to a character duel. You know, my character versus your character, and they would, like, pinky swear, whatever, that there would be no resurrections, no raised deads, no cloning, no, you know, rolling up the character's brother, none of that crap. They were going to have a duel to permanent character death. And this happened a lot. And I don't know, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 times over the course of maybe 2 years of me going to college in that town before I transferred to a different college. And what these guys would do is they said, go find John Clement. Like, I wasn't there. And some of these people, they weren't even my players. They weren't even, like, from my table. Some of these people I was meeting for the first time, they said, because I was the DM that people trusted to fairly DM these character duels. And they would be like, okay, if John Clement said it happened, then it happened. Because they knew that I was interested in figuring out what I thought would really happen if that universe was real, instead of, you know, favoring somebody's character or some other character or whatever. So it's kind of a compliment, but it's a compliment from very immature people. So there is that. But yes, these very immature people trusted me to settle their weird, petty Annie little schoolyard hissy fits. So I had this, so I don't fudge dice, and I had this reputation for being like a super fair DM. So now we get to Superman and Elminster. All that was just build up. So because I had this reputation as a fair DM and everything, there were some conspirators. Yes, it was a conspiracy. There were some people at my table that they knew that if they got away with something at my table, that John would let it stand because he's the fair DM. So they wanted So basically, I was running Forgotten Realms at the time as the main D&D world I was running. They decided to kill Elminster. They did not succeed. Okay, it's not about them killing Elminster. This is about what this incident and Superman have in common. But yeah, so they decided, but the reason that they wanted to kill Elminster was they knew that if they succeeded, like, first of all, they'd have a fair chance because John is the fair DM. So first of all, they'd have a fair chance. And then if they succeeded, John would let it stand. Like, and then they could brag, oh yeah, we have the D&D game where Elminster's dead because we killed him. That was the thing. That was what they were doing. And then flavor breaks. So flavor breaks. So I've been running this game for 39 years. And occasionally we have flavor breaks. We will play a little different game for a few story arcs, then go back to the D&D game that's been going on for 39 years. And a flavor break could be Star Wars. A flavor break could be Stargate. A flavor break could be Shadowrun. A flavor break could be Palladium's Rifts. A flavor break could be Gamma World. A flavor break could be Top Secret. A flavor break could be Middle Earth. A flavor break is just taking a little break for a few weeks from the regular D&D campaign and then going back. Well, there was a DC Comics flavor break where we were actually doing DC Universe role-playing game as it existed at the time. And the same conspirators, they decided to try to kill Superman. Because, again, they knew that because John's such a fair DM, that they would actually have a real chance. And then, because he's such a fair DM, if they succeeded, he would let it stand. And just like killing Elminster, they did not kill Superman. Although they came much closer to killing Superman than they came to killing Elminster. Elminster, they didn't even come close because Ed Greenwood had just released at the time all of Elminster's secrets and all of his, like the regular contingency spell is not enough for Elminster. That's an 8th level spell. He's got a 9th level version called Elminster's Evasion that is like the regular contingency spell, like jacked up to 11. So he is so he's got just tons of. So they didn't even get close to Elminster, but they did manage. In the DC universe, their characters actually managed to acquire some kryptonite, like fairly and everything. I DM'd the story arc and whatnot. And of course, we just didn't stay in the DC universe because it was just a flavor break. So I don't know what would have happened there. It probably would have been epically silly and fun to DM, whether they'd succeeded or not. But yeah, they actually, step one to killing their plan to killing Superman was acquire some kryptonite, and they did that. They succeeded on step one. So Elminster, no, they weren't even. They didn't even. Their first step to kill Elminster was to get their characters to a level where they thought they could start trying, like where they thought they could, like if they made him an enemy that they might not just instantly get hosed. So they didn't, they wanted to get like above 20th level and stuff like that before they took on Elminster. But that was their long-term goal. Didn't even get close. But no, they did acquire some kryptonite against Superman. So the thing that Superman and Elminster have in common is they're iconic for their universes. So the little question I have in the thumbnail, what do Superman and Elminster have in common? They're iconic. Elminster is iconic for specifically Forgotten Realms, but generally D&D as a whole, along with Drizzt Do'Urden, who's also from the Forgotten Realms. But Superman obviously is iconic DC. So iconic characters iconic NPCs that maybe your player characters will want to kill. So we will see you next time on Tales of the 39.